everyone, and welcome to Why Everyone is Using BIM for Construction Management. My name is Juliana, and I work in marketing here at MicroCAD. And today's presenter is Phil Marshall, our applications specialist. At today's webinar, you will get a view of how BIM can extend into the pre-construction and construction phases using the same data and platform as was used in the design. Throughout the webinar, you can ask a question at any given point on the left-hand corner. You can ask Phil to revisit a step or ask any questions. This is your time and we want you to make the most of it. And in the upper left-hand corner, you will find links to our social media, website, and YouTube channel. Also, make sure to check our YouTube channel. We post all of our webinars there at the end, so you can share with colleagues or rewatch it on your own time. And without further ado, we'll pass it on to Phil. Hi, Phil.
Good afternoon and welcome everyone to this. Let me share my screen. So today we're going to be talking about the role of the construction manager in a project and how BIM collaboration tools can help. This is something that's become much more important as more and more BIM projects are being bid and contracted out. All right, so designing and constructing a building we know is tough. It needs people from a variety of fields and with differing expertise. Each group is responsible for their discipline, but it's dependent on others. And there's lots of information, not just the geometry of the building, but specifications, testing requirements, custom fabrications, schedules, right down to each of the millions of individual building components. Like everything else, building design projects are on tight budgets and schedules. Missing either the cost target or the opening date can have significant economic impact. No wonder construction sites are considered cluttered, chaotic, and unsafe. There's a lot of wastage of both material and time as different trade crews work on the buildings. And there seems always to be some surprises. Something is going to cause change to the design or the construction, which makes the industry very concerned about managing risk. Which is why there are construction managers. As professionals whose ultimate responsibility is to the owner, construction managers do whatever is necessary to deliver the project on time and on budget while handling all of the unexpected curveballs on the way. Construction managers have been a necessary and valuable part of successful projects for a long time, but Deloitte Consulting tried to envision what construction might look like in the near future. They anticipated increases in prefab and modular construction, a site full of sensors feeding information to a central location. Robotic assist devices would do the heavy lifting for the workers. To counter material shortages, strategic sourcing ecosystems will be developed. And BIM to provide a single source for all of the data needed to make these tools work. BIM for design has been around a long time and has been clearly successful as evidenced by the inclusion of BIM requirements in project bidding. But it's only in the last few years that BIM models incorporated construction and fabrication data. And it's even more recent that workflows were created embedding RFI and change orders into the BIM model. If we look at the flow of data over the life of a product, we see that in conceptual and design stages, there is tremendous authoring of data. The BIM model becomes more and more detailed and data rich. At pre-con and construction stages, we use that data, transforming raw materials into a completed building. And in operations stage, we continue to take advantage of the data. So we see that to have the most effect on the project, construction managers need to be involved early on when there is more opportunity to make significant changes painlessly. While BIM is data-centric, construction management is all about people using the data. Naturally, these processes overlap. Again, construction managers need to be involved early to help shape the data collected and ensure its appropriate use. So how is a BIM project different for a construction manager? Because BIM projects are data-driven, the construction manager must be involved early on when the data requirements are being set. If all the information about a particular piece of equipment, its weight for example, is included in the BIM model from the beginning, when the construction manager wants to plan crane lifts, the data is right there and they don't have to scurry around trying to find cut sheets or contacting vendors. The data in a BIM project is always available and always current, so there'll be no more worrying about whether this is the most recent drawing or if the latest changes have been incorporated. And all partners in the project have access to the same information, everything in one place. BIM provides the collaboration tools to encourage communications and resolves issues quickly. These tools are built into the software so you don't have to look at 3 or 4 different places. So the BIM approach helps the construction manager throughout the entire life cycle of the project. It provides data for verification, coordination, visualization, scheduling, conflict resolution, and handover and operations. Let's look at these phases a little deeper. At concept time, the construction manager can help define the project, lend their expertise in value engineering and constructability, and keep an eye on risks. The project site and building can be visualized to identify any concerns. Long lead time items can be highlighted and delivery slots reserved. During detailed design, the construction manager can watch the project development, identify underperforming teams, coordinate the work of the various disciplines, and be a conduit of communications to reduce surprises. The construction manager could oversee the finding and resolving of clashes and direct the teams on the changes needed. So what would that look like for the construction manager? Here we have a BIM project on the cloud where we've identified that this is a sample project, and this is one of many projects we might be working on. And in the folder structure, we've organized the data by discipline. So this folder is the architectural data. There's an MEP folder, there's a civil folder, could be a plumbing, could be whatever disciplines are involved in this particular project. And here's the models themselves, the BIM models. So if I take a look at this particular BIM model, it is of course a 3D model, so we can rotate and look at it. We can slice it in such a way that we can see what's going on inside. So we can visualize this 3D model and see all the content. It is a true intelligent model. So if I pick on a particular item, like this particular window, I can see the information about that particular window, including things like vendor, model number, reflectivity, heat parameters, R value, all the information you might want to know about that particular object. As well as the 3D model, we also have the 2D drawings that go with it. And these 2D drawings are guaranteed to be consistent with the model that we're looking at. So if you update the 3D model, you update the sheets at the same time. For collaboration tools to share information with the construction manager to all of the partners on the project, you can see there's a markup capability. So we could take these drawings and mark them up using this palette on the right-hand side for information or to raise a question. There's also what are called issues. Those are these yellow dots in the sheet. So if I click on a yellow dot, that indicates that someone had an issue or a concern. Now, this isn't an RFI, a formal process. We'll get to those in a little bit. But this is where there's an informal, hey, what's going on here kind of question. So someone created an issue because they noticed that this particular room had no door. That's probably a problem. So they identified that that was an issue and could assign it to an individual. In this case, it was assigned to Douglas with a due date. So Douglas is now given an email that says that you've got this issue, you better take a look at it and try and resolve it. So if Douglas resolves it, then I, as the issue initiator, get an email back indicating that that particular issue, Douglas thinks he solved it. And it's up to me to confirm that indeed he solved it, and then the issue is closed. One of the things that's important is that even after they're closed, these issues are kept with the project. So at the end of the project, we can always go back and resolve and take a look and see how quickly people responded to issues, how many issues were created because of bad design processes, how many issues were created because of quality concerns. So whatever the source of the issue, we can go back and analyze and make decisions based on that analytics on what we want to do on the next project. This is one issue I was looking at, but if you want to look at all the issues for the project, because you are responsible for the entire project, you might get a long list of issues. And if you want to look a little bit closer at one of those issues, like this one, edge of roof, a concern about the drip edge, then it jumps automatically to the view that gives you the best visualization of what that issue is all about. And there's that issue that we're looking at here. Number 16, edge of roof. So these issues are a nice and convenient way for communication within the different project teams. Just as an aside, if you as the project manager create an issue in the project, then the authors of the data, whether an MEP author or architectural author, they get this issue in their authoring tool. So they would see that they have to do something while they're in the authoring tool and have the capability of making changes. So it's a very smooth process to handle these issues. All right. We talked about data management, how it's important to know that we have the most current version. So right now we're looking at version 14 of this model. But if I wanted to, I could go in history and see, well, when was version 13? When was version 12? What was 11? And I could go back and revisit those versions and see maybe I want to revert back to where it was last week for whatever reason. So I have all of these versions available.
Hey, Phil, we're not seeing like the model, or we're just seeing like a blank sheet of the presentation.
Oh, good heavens. Technology is nice when it works. When it doesn't, I was showing, I thought, my screen, so let me unshare and share again.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, let's try that.
I want the entire screen. So now do you see a building?
Yeah, now I do. Thank you.
That must have started when I went from the PowerPoint to the live part of it. Is that correct?
Yeah, I think, but I was in another tab, so I just catch it.
Okay. All right. I apologize. So what we were saying before, and I can just briefly go through again, is the idea that we've got this 3D model. With this 3D model, we could identify issues. With the 3D model is 2D drawings, but they are tied together. So if there was a version change in the 3D model, it would update the drawings automatically. So you're guaranteed you're looking at the current information. And these drawings can be redlined and issues could be created, just like I was showing you on the 3D version. So these are issues that represent questions that people had that need to be responded to. All right, so I think that catches us back up. I apologize for that. We were talking about the versioning. So the data management part of this system keeps track of all of the information that you provide to it, and it keeps a version of everything that you've done. So you could, as I was saying, go back to an earlier release, an earlier version from last week. Or the big question in the room always is, well, what's different about this version from the last version? So there's a compare tool that you can use that lets you see what is different. And in this particular case, it shows a window in green showing that that window was added. There's nothing in red, so nothing was removed. And there were two objects that were changed, the wall and that door. So obviously the wall got changed if I punched a hole in it to put that window in. What's up with the door? If I select the door, it tells me the door was moved by 9.5 feet. So in this case, the architect decided they wanted another window here, slid the door over to make room for the window and put the window in. Is extremely valuable to all of your consultants and partners on the project, that they can have this ability to see what's changed from version to version so that they can see how it affects them. So the MEP engineer would be doing this all the time just to make sure they understand what the architect has changed and how it might affect the MEP design. All right, so we're talking about MEP as well as the civil and the electrical and all the different consultants that are working on your project. Let's look at how those teams really interact. So when we look at the design collaboration part of this tool, we'll see that there is a number of teams. We'll just bring this down. We have the architectural team, a structural team, an MEP team, all these different disciplines are working on the project. And these dots and squares represent drawing packages or release packages of information that they've issued. So if we look at one of these issues, this is the architectural release this package, which is the building we were just looking at, to make it available for use by all of the other partners. If the other partners had issued release packages, we'd see them on their own swim lanes. So someone like a project manager or the construction manager would be able to look at this graphic and see who's released what project packages and what was in them and how current are they. So it'd be a quick idea of seeing who's keeping up onto the schedule and who isn't, for that matter. One of the things that you would do when you're looking at these release packages is you'd want to coordinate those release packages from one person to another. So when the MEP comes in with their updated release package and you want to compare it to the structural package, you want to see if somebody's run pipes through steel beams. So that's part of what the coordination tool can do. So in this case, we're looking at architectural versus MEP, and we want to find what clashes have occurred. So they found that there was 78 clashes, 78 interferences. And if we just look at a couple, here it shows that this air handler unit interferes with the ceiling underneath. So pretty evidently somebody moved the ceiling or else they moved the air handler unit. And if we look at another one, there's another situation where there's an air handler unit in the ceiling. So evidently somebody's moved the ceiling and it's affected those two air handlers. So we find this interferences very easily. So what we could do is say, take those two, create an issue for remedying these two, send it to the architectural guy and say, drop your ceiling by 2 inches, and then the interference would be resolved. So it becomes part of the issue process, which, if you remember, is never forgotten in the system. So even after this is resolved, we'll be able to go back and see how many interference issues were caused by this group and how many were caused by that group, how many were resolved within X number of days. So you can actually get some analytics to get an idea of how well you're doing on handling these kinds of problems. And to pay attention to all of those problems would be difficult if you had to click around and click and try different things. But if you're the project manager, you'd probably start your day at the project home, which gives you a summary of what issues are outstanding, what issues are overdue, what design packages have been released, and what's going on at the site. So this is information you would start from, and then you could drill down and look at the issues and drill down and say what design package was released and what did it consist of. So that's a great way of getting the overview of the tools. I'm sorry, get an overview of the status of the project as you're trying to figure out what needs to be done. Now, these tools are available throughout the project lifecycle, but they're particularly useful during the design phase. All right, so I'm going to go back to the slides. All right, so we see the slides now, yes? Yes.
Yeah. Yes.
All right, so that's 1 for 2. All right, so we were talking about the design stage and showing you how those collaboration tools are efficient and effective for use during that phase, although they're available for the entire project. During the pre-construction phase, what you're doing is you're deciding on the scope of modular construction, you're planning for the offsite fabrication, you're deciding what is going to be done offsite, how they're going to be doing it, and you're going to look at scheduling delivery of those components. Because what you want to do is control the access to the site. While teams are at you could arrange what teams are in the buildings at what time. And this 4D BIM model that we have can help in equipment access, reserving laydown areas, and visualizing the reach of cranes for lifts. Actual construction is where the collaboration tools are most effective. Aside from providing up-to-date construction drawings and data, the BIM software can provide checklists for safety, appropriate PPE, correct equipment training, and so on. The BIM software also holds a record of what decisions were made at meetings to resolve issues. Markups of drawings and identification of issues or concerns can be done right in the collaboration tool, just like I showed you a few minutes ago, making a single place to look for all communications. Rapid RFI and change order process is important to keep the project on schedule. Now, this is the formal process of the RFI that is asking for specific information for a specific problem, which may result into a change order and would result in change in the dollars. So these are formal processes. When someone creates an RFI, it goes through a formal RFI process that's routed to the correct person, and then it gets moved to where decisions can be made. But there's a formal process for that, as opposed to what I was showing you before with those orange dots, where it's a informal, anyone can create those issues and people can resolve them as they need to without going through a workflow. RFIs are a bit more complicated, and you really need to have a controlled workflow for the RFIs. What you also can provide is a quality control checklist so that as the project is being finished up and you're starting to think about commissioning, then you go through and make sure with the checklist that the project meets the owner's expectations. All of this data is maintained within the collaboration tool. So at the end of the project, it's easy to determine what went right and what could be improved upon. At this point, the handover BIM model is effectively a 3D as-built model. Frequently, the construction manager's role continues after handover to help the owner integrate the data in the BIM model with their own systems. For facilities management, asset information, or planning for the next phase of construction, the BIM model and its data is critical. Many owners are now considering a handover model as a basis for a digital twin of the facility to be used for all operations. Okay, so we have talked about the role of a construction manager. We've identified the trends that are occurring in construction and show that they all depend on strong data management. The BIM model is central to maintaining a single source of data and dispersing it to all partners on the project. What then makes a successful construction manager in the BIM era? Early involvement so they can ensure the right data is being captured. Educate and ensure that all partners use the same collaboration tools. And maintaining the BIM model during construction so it becomes an as-built handover model. This is what the owners want from a construction manager, and this is what you can deliver with BIM collaboration. All right, let's handle any questions that might be out there.
Thank you, Phil, for that wonderful presentation. And yeah, as a reminder, you can ask a question on the left-hand corner. And the first question is, I'm already using Procore. How is this any different?
Yeah, that's a good question, because I imagine anyone who's been doing a lot of construction management work has some tool that they're already using for collaboration. Procore, Newformer, those are the two big ones in the industry. And they were really focused on providing tools for construction collaboration. But remember what we were talking about here. We're talking about tools that can be used in the entire process from design through pre-con, all the way through handover and operation. So what the tools that we're talking about here, BIM collaboration, are really intended through that entire spectrum. If you don't get started in doing your construction management work until construction actually starts, then you're dependent on someone else to do the data management, to ensure that the drawings you're working from are current, and to make sure that you have all of the changes incorporated. This system takes care of that automatically. Procore, Newforma rely on external systems in order to look at your drawings. So this is more of an integrated tool to be used as a holistic solution from beginning to end.
Thank you, Phil. Second question is, I've used this on a couple of projects, but mostly I'm still in 2D and AutoCAD. Is that a good idea?
Well, we can see, and I hope you saw the advantages when you used these kinds of tools in your projects. There's a lot of benefits in this, and large projects, multidisciplinary projects, absolutely you'll see these benefits. Even on smaller projects, and maybe even with fewer disciplines, you'll still see benefits. But I'll admit there's still going to be some small projects that don't benefit as much as these others, and like to keep things simple. So in that case, working from drawings could be just what that particular project needs. But I want to remind you that those small projects, working from drawings, those are the ones that typically have fairly small margins for constructors, and they also are the ones with the most risk, because you're working from drawings that you can't verify match the intent, design intent of the authors, and you're always at the risk of someone coming back and saying, wait a second, you don't have the latest version of the drawing. So you have a high risk, low margin, probably not the sort of business you want to spend your time on if you can avoid it.
Got it. Thank you, Phil. And last question. Who's using this now?
This tool, Autodesk, is, I think, without question, is a $5 billion company now. Without question, they've got a large number of users. And this specific tool is the industry standard, is dominant in the architectural design field. If you think of the tool called Revit, which is the BIM authoring tool, it's probably got 75, 80% market share in the design side. On the construction side, the numbers aren't so high, but there's a large number of large and mid-sized construction companies, as well as small construction companies, who are using it. People like Turner and Skanska and Bechtel. These are all companies who have made a big commitment to use this particular tool. And again, the biggest benefit they get is it's linking the design process to the construction process. So if there's an issue in construction, there's an intelligent 3D model that represents what's going on that they can query and resolve, as opposed to just marking red line on the 2D piece of paper and hoping that people can understand what you're trying to achieve. So these big companies have made the investment, and they're getting the payback.
Perfect. Thank you. So yeah, if you want to learn any of these topics in detail, you can always take a custom training with Phil or someone else on our team. We also offer group classes online. So be sure to be checking the MicroCAD website for future webinars. We have coming up next how to extend your capabilities beyond 3D design on April 6th. And then on April 13, we have reality capture scanners with Leica Geosystems. And then on April 20, we have Blue BIM tools, markup chess, and more. So yeah, thank you everyone for attending. Thank you, Phil, for that wonderful presentation. And yeah, have a great day, everyone, and thank you.
Thank you, everyone.